Leela Thebessa, a girl with black hair paired with eyes of the same color, and pinkish-white skin, was taken under the wing of the extremely prestigious Duchy of Wiliot, the Sword of the Empire, when she was 14 as fiancée of their only son Philin. At such a young age, under the Duchess' direct supervision, she's been trained as the next lady of the Duchy. They treated her well, just as they would have if they were blessed with a daughter. Her relationship with her fiancé, though not on a romantic scale, is casual and a tad friendly. Philin, being oblivious of things that concerned their duchy, concentrated on swordsmanship. Leela was entrusted with managing the ducal mansion and its businesses. Life for Leela was normal, but life, as if it decided to play with her, had other plans. On a rainy night, when the sky itself seemed to fall from the heavens, the Duke and Duchess both perished on a carriage accident while giving aid to the townsfolk affected by the flood. Philin, despite the responsibilities that await him upon inheriting his father's title, gave in to depression and locked himself up in the training grounds. Leela was left all alone to manage the whole duchy. Their marriage was postponed to give way to mourning. Not long after, the emperor announced the conquest of the mainland. Philin joined the expedition. For 6 years he was in the battlefield. Leela managed his family resources and took care of the servants, making sure that Philin has a place he can call home when he returns. And finally, the time has come for the master of the duchy to return. Everyone was excited. The maids dolled up Leela, while the others prepared a feast to welcome their master. As they await him by the front door, a shocking scene unfolds. Philin, riding his horse, has a strange blonde woman in his arms, and she seemed to be pregnant. Shock registered on Leela's face as the scene unfolds right in front of her. Audible gasps and hushed gossip from the servants made buzzing sounds. Acting as if it was nothing, Philin jokingly greeted Leela and asked if she forgot to speak. Out of practice decorum, Leela was able to control her emotions and coherently replied to Philin despite feeling shaken. Exchanging brief pleasantries, Philin once again turned to the pregnant woman, who goes by the name Sisley. Carefully, he helped her go down from the horse and summoned one of the maids named Misha. As if his fiancé wasn't there, he asked the pregnant woman what kind of room she prefers. The woman answered, in a purring tone, that she wants some things with lots of sunshine. Philin gave her the Duchess room to use. Leela raised a pertinent argument that no one can use the Duchess room, except the lady of the duchy, but Philin shut her down by saying that as the owner of the duchy, he has every right to give anyone whichever room he wants. Resignedly, Leela acquiesced and let the servants obey their master's order. Leela and Philin did not see the snide smirk that Sisley made as the servants escort her to the room that was given to her. In the absence of the servants, Philin asked Leela if she's angry. She wanted to spat at him, but sensing that he expects an agreeable answer from her, Leela immediately fixed her expression and said yes. Philin prodded no further and went on ahead. Left alone in the room she uses as an office, Leela was swamped with worry over the recent events in their duchy. They will be the hot pot of talk among servants and fellow nobles. The young master, who just inherited his father's title as duke, left the duchy to join the expedition for 6 years. Coming back, he brings a pregnant woman home, where his fiancé, who worked for everything to maintain the duchy, resides. She wanted to ignore it all, to leave everything in disarray and just forget everything. But the late Duke and Duchess entrusted her with the duchy. She can't disrespect the trust they gave her. Swamped with appeals and proposals from the nobles who are directly under the duchy's supervision, Leela ignored her personal issues and worked through the documents. The hardships she endured just to prove she can do the job entrusted to her by the late Duke and Duchess can all go to waste with just a simple mistake. Absorbed with her mountain load of work, she was startled to hear a peal of thunder. Because she was concentrating, she failed to notice that it started raining outside. Lightning and thunder terrified her, and during their times together, Philin was kind enough to keep her company, but that won't be possible anymore. She's certain that he's keeping Sisley company in her room. The maid's call for dinner was a lifesaver. Facing other people will force her to ignore her fear and the things that make her feel miserable. As she was heading towards the dining hall, she saw a maid pushing a breakfast trolley. It was headed to Phylan's room, or more aptly to the room that Sisley is currently using. Phylan will be dining with the pregnant woman. Wanting to maintain the peace at the duchy, Leela chose to keep silent about the breach of decorum that Phylan is committing. She is not the lady of the duchy. Diverting her thoughts from the things that might incite her anger, which might lead to an argument between her and Phylan, she decided to work until late that night, when a knock came from the door. Baron Wizard, an elderly noble, was there to ask for her signature on documents that are needed urgently. Feeling exasperated with Phylan's recent actions and his continuous neglect of his ducal duties, despite being present at the duchy, she instructed the Baron to confer with Phylan instead, much to the surprise of the elderly nobleman. As instructed, he sought Phylan to process the documents, but as expected, Phylan couldn't care less and sent the man back to Leela, conceited enough to think that the reason for Leela's recent action was to vie for his attention. While talking to the Baron, Sisley intervened and seductively inquired if Phylan still had to work even if it's already evening. The young Duke, knave as he was, gave in to her and drove the Baron away. Inside their room, Sisley manipulated Phylan into using honorifics with Leela. She noticed the way they address each other, and feigning concern, she pointed out that being over-familiar with each other when they aren't married yet can be detrimental to his authority and reputation as a duke. Not knowing any better, Phylan would follow her suggestion. Meanwhile, at Leela's quarters, after having her dinner and bath, she wasn't surprised to see Baron Willard back to her and begging that she took care of the documents as she used to. She doesn't want to delay the papers any further and hinder the duchy's business. However, she already decided that it's time Phylan learns to take care of their family business, because she cannot do it for him forever, since she is not a member of their family. She was giving back the approved documents to Baron Wizard when suddenly a peal of thunder occurred. The Baron was kind enough to ask if she's okay, sensing the slight change in her demeanor. Not wanting to be a burden, Leela said she's okay and sent the man ahead. Alone once again, she decided to call it a night and head to bed. Alas, the thunderstorm is not over yet. Feeling afraid, she wrapped herself with her blanket, recalling the times when she's scared. Whenever she feels afraid, Misha will always stay with her. She'll prepare her something warm to drink, but Misha isn't there with her at present, and she wonder what's keeping her. Said maid is currently in the room of Sisley, looking none too happy and ready to leave at any moment, the two occupants of the room blissfully unaware of her worry. Phylan finally noticed her and was about to send her away when Sisley deviously asked for a massage, claiming that her thigh and hips were aching due to the long hours she spent riding a horse. Misha knew she can't say no because she's a servant, so she reasoned out that her massaging capabilities are even inferior to that of a child, but Phylan insisted, and Misha was further kept in the room while worrying for her mistress. Phylan sat himself by the single-seat couch and looked out the window, watching the raging night sky. The next morning, Phylan visited Leela's quarters to hand her an urgent invitation to the enthronement of the new emperor. It's about to happen in a month. Acting just like she did before in front of her fiancé, Leela recited the necessary preparations and reminded Phylan of the schedule of things to make it in time for the event. Much to Leela's surprise, Phylan cut her short, following the advice of Sisley. He told Leela that she should be using honorifics when addressing him. Shocked though she was, she acquiesced, but retaliated that he should also address her as Lady Thebessa when in public. Going back to their discussion about the party, Leela informed Phylan that she'll be calling an exclusive designer to make a dress fit for the celebration. To her horror, Phylan declared that he'll order a dress for Sisley as well, for he plans to look around the capital with her, using the excuse that she'll get bored if she's left behind in the duchy. Leela's exasperation reached another level when Phylan instructed her to order a dress that's on par with what she'll be wearing for the occasion, making it clear that he wants Sisley to be treated like an important guest. Sarcastically, Leela asked Phylan if he really thinks, at that point, that she's still the lady of the duchy, to which Phylan affirmatively answered, he's betrothed to her. Who else would it be? Furthermore, he divulged his plan of kicking Sisley from the duchy the moment she gave birth to their child. His statement made Leela remember her own father doing the exact same thing. Her mother, a woman he impregnated, was immediately driven away after giving birth to her. Philin plans the same things with Sisley. She'll be driven away, but her son shall be recorded in the family register. He tried once again to make her understand that she should take care of Sisley, but Leela vehemently refused. If he really believes that she's the lady he ought to marry, then he should forget the notion to make her the caretaker of the pregnant woman. With the presence of the pregnant woman and the way they address each other with honorifics as of late, the duchy servants started gossiping amongst themselves, but Leela did not admonish them. Whatever they were talking about are true anyway. Treading the vast hall of the duchy's mansion, Leela thought that she never hoped for love between her and Philin. What she truly wanted back then was to escape the Count's, her father's house. Admittedly, she's hurt by how Philin is paying attention to the pregnant woman, but she decided to avoid seeing her because she believes that it'll be less painful that way. However, the callous woman just won't let her be. Obviously waiting for her, she flaunted her enlarged belly to Leela as if boasting of her pregnancy and invited her to touch it. Knowing better, she kept her cool and casually declined the offer. But the woman did not stop. She introduced herself, declaring her full name as Sisley Heliot, confident that by hearing her name, Leela would know its significance, and recognize she did. Heliot was the name of the fallen royal family from the kingdom of Melis. Their territory and family have been usurped by their empire in the recent expedition. A member of a fallen royalty is on the same status as a commoner or even lower. Sisley is already breaching etiquette by approaching Leela without any appointment. Leela, despite knowing that fact, greeted the woman and introduced herself as Leela Thebessa. To the horror of Misha, who was accompanying her at that time, Sisley addressed Leela as Miss, an inappropriate way to address someone of higher status. Enraged, the maid pointed it out and cited the reality of Sisley's social status. She also made her realize that it is out of the goodness of Lady Thebessa, Leela's rightful title, that despite her low status, she is enjoying the perks of the mansion and living like a princess. Shock visibly registered in Sisley's face. Leela intervened in her maid's behalf and apologized for her maid's honesty. However, she did not scold her maid. Sisley was out of line, saying goodbye and addressing Sisley by her surname without any honorifics. Just as any noble would address someone of lower status, they left her alone. Leela headed to her office, and out of her exasperation with Sisley, she slumped sloppily on her desk and moaned her annoyance with her. As if Sisley is not enough bad news, a letter from the Countess, her father's wife, came. She is visiting the duchy. Leela dreads to face her because of the experience she had with her when she was still small. She would often hit Leela, who is not her real daughter, whenever she failed to meet her expectations. Upon hearing the news of the Countess' visit, Misha started the preparations to welcome the Countess, despite Leela's assurance that they need not bother themselves since she's not staying, only visiting. One bad thing after the other. A servant informed her that the pregnant woman suddenly fainted. The doctor has been summoned and Philin is on his way too. She hasn't thanked the maid for long and Philin comes storming her office and was demanding she tell him what she did to Sisley. Telling him the truth made no effect, for he still insinuated that she did something to Sisley, even went as far as threatening her if something happens to the child. At that moment, Leela realized that Philin has deeper feelings for the pregnant woman. What he promised as marriage is something bound to be the annulment of their engagement. The next day, Countess Thebessa came, and it wasn't with glad tidings. She visited to berate her of her failure to secure her spot as Duchess, despite her advice to get married right after the Duke and Duchess' death. She also handed her 2 bottles, one to aid pregnancy, and the second was to eliminate pregnancy. Horrified with the Countess' suggestions, she cut their meeting short and spent time in her chambers. True enough, she hates Sisley, but not enough to abort the child. A sudden knock on her door stopped her reverie. Misha went in and informed her that the dressmaker has arrived. She gave instructions to hasten the shoes and jewelry maker when Misha told her they haven't arrived yet. Much to her surprise, Philin was already at the Grand Salon according to her maid, but Misha's next words mortified her. Sisley was with him, and he's teaching her how to greet guests. Upon hearing what's transpiring in the Grand Salon, Leela hastened. Greeting guests is a duchess role. She wondered why Philin is letting the strange woman do the greetings, but she hesitated as she reached the Grand Salon. She reminded herself that she's not the lady of the duchy. They aren't married yet. She's no different than Sisley. She tried to calm herself as she entered, but rage filled her as she saw what Sisley was wearing. Sisley was checking out the dress she ordered for herself. She was also wearing the maternity dress the late Duchess gave her. Unable to contain her emotions any longer, she confronted the woman with raised voice. Philin was quick to intervene and blamed her for what happened. Sisley needs dresses, so he let her wear her dress. After all, why would she need it when she's not pregnant? Sisley, sly as she is, dramatically apologized with crocodile tears. Philin immediately took her side to console her. Ignoring Leela, he ordered the maids for hot tea and warm towels. Seeing as she was being treated like an outsider, she left the salon. Misha loyally followed her. For days she avoided Philin and Sisley, the gossips of the servants almost growing out of proportions. Amidst the intrigues of Phylan's infidelity, Leela remained steadfast to her duties. She took care of the necessary preparations for the upcoming event, until the day of their departure came. Seeing Philin for the first time after days of not encountering him didn't make her feel fonder for her fiancé. Rather, she felt relieved when he declared he'll be riding with Sisley. Their journey to the capital ended without mishaps. However, upon arrival, people went abuzz upon seeing Leela alighting the carriage by herself, while on another carriage, Duke Philin was with another woman who's pregnant, and he's assisting her alight with utmost care. Not wanting to deal with the gossipers and onlookers, Leela decided to went straight ahead to her quarters, only to find out that she was placed in a room with large windows. Rain often occurs in the capital, and Leela's scared of thunder. Having large windows in her room is problematic for her. Even if she doesn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble, she asked the maids if she can be transferred to a much smaller room. Of course, the maids were shocked to her request. The size of a room assigned to nobility depends on one's social status. The higher one is in rank, the bigger and grander the room. Despite their protests, Leela got her room changed. But Philin took it negatively. She was accused of deliberately changing her room to be right next to where Sisley would be staying, to intimidate her. Sisley intervened with their heated exchange and act like an understanding madam. Then as sleekly she worms her way into things, she smoothly proposed to Philin that she'll be moving in his room, instead, slyly using the excuse that she can't sleep alone, and that she loves staying at Phylan's side. Enraged and hurt, Leela decided to take a walk to cool her head and ease her heart. Misha, her ever-loyal maid, went to accompany her. The walk did her good, and in no time she's back to her calm and collected self. Her maid felt happy upon seeing her usual smile. Feeling at ease, Leela decided to go back to their lodgings when she happens to witness an actual extortion. Duty as a noble urged her to meddle, which ended up in violence when she instructed her maid to call forth an officer. As she was about to get stabbed, a handsome man with blue hair and eyes of the same color defended her. His swordsmanship is on par to none. Even when he was deflecting the man's knife, the way he held her was gentle. The incident ended swiftly, and the man scuttled away like a scared dog. Leela stared at the man who saved her and wondered who among the noblemen near her age does she know who have the physical description such as the man in front of her. She's certain that he is not an ordinary individual. The way he carries himself, and the expensive clothes he wears, though simply made, exudes elegance and shows quality. Turning to her, the man casually scolded her for being careless. However, she proved him wrong by showing him that she can defend herself. By swiftly flicking her wrist, she was able to point the end of her fan at his throat. Without him being able to deflect it, he realized that her fan was custom-made. with a pointed blade hidden on its flap that emerges on the edge when folded and used in defense. When the man apologized for his misjudgment of her abilities, she refused to accept it and explained that she should be the one thanking him. Talking to the man who saved her, she mentioned that she designed the weapon herself. Genuine admiration crossed the man's face. Exchanging pleasantries with the man, she once again thanked him and said her goodbyes. She decided to visit the guard post and report the incident, but since she is a girl, the guard nonchalantly told her to write the report, sensing that the man was not taking her seriously. Leela mentioned that perhaps it would be better if she reports it to the emperor himself. The man immediately righted his posture and listened to what she has to say. Done with the report, Leela and her maid Misha headed back to their lodgings only to sense someone secretly following them. Assertive by training, Leela confronted her stalker, only to see that it was the handsome man with blue hair. He wanted to know how Leela knew that the man was committing extortion on the young girl. How was she able to identify the right interest for borrowed money? Such knowledge is not commonly known by women, especially those at her age, since women were not meant to rule a territory. Explaining her situation as something that she just happens to know made the man smirk. Knowing that she's unwilling to divulge anything about her, the man respectfully said his goodbyes using her full name with honorifics, Lady Leela Thebessa. The way he addressed her made her look back, only to see that the man has gone. Back at their lodgings, Leela wondered how the man knew her and which family does he belong to. Misha pointed out that Leela is popular among the upper echelons and he probably saw the crest on her fan. She even offered to try and find out from which the family the handsome man was. But Leela refused. She can sense, based from his demeanor and the quality of his clothes, that he is not from a mere baron or count's family. She'll surely see him. If her hunch is correct that his family is of high status, because they will be invited at the enthronement party. The sound of an arriving carriage made her look out the window. Philin has arrived and dropped by, addressing her casually. She reminded him to use honorifics as he requested, but he sarcastically retaliated that her life must be sad because she is inflexible, not buying his provocation. She just said that she's following the rules he set, as if it was the most normal thing to do. He mentioned that he bought cake, and when she thought it was for her, Philin outright denied it and bluntly said it was for Cicely. If Leela wanted cake, she can always buy one for herself. The devious woman, while enjoying Phylan's treat, asked if he bought one for Leela. When he said he didn't, she voiced out her concern for the other lady, saying that she's like family to her. Making up a fake custom which she said was from their kingdom, she made one of the servants send some cake to Leela's quarters. Leela, upon receiving the gift, thought that Philin bought her one, even though she highly doubts it, because she knows Philin to be someone who is clueless with the feeling of others. She opened the cake box, only to be mortified to see that it was a crushed leftover cake, obviously not sliced from, but leftovers from directly forking the cake. Custom or not, to give someone something a person directly ate on is outright violation of decorum and respect. Hurt beyond words, she instructed the butler to throw away the cake. She went to the outfit room to cool her head, staring at their matching outfits as a couple. Leela tried her best to think of a way to appease her raging emotions. True enough that the situation is not favorable for her, but as custom dictates, she must show proper etiquette and still attend with him. Misha, trying to appease her mistress, and suggested embroidering a handkerchief for the duke to use. Their kingdom has a custom. Noblemen who are attending an important event should wear the handkerchief embroidered by their special someone or betrothed. Misha's suggestion triggered a happy memory from Leela. The day before Philin left for the battlefield, Leela embroidered a handkerchief for him as lucky charm for his safe return. He playfully accepted it and promised to return safely to her side. Remembering the old times made Leela reconsider her hatred for her fiancé. He might be attending to another woman as of late, but they are still betrothed. She spent a sleepless night embroidering for him. Even when her fingers got stabbed by the needle for 22 times, she continued. As if blessed by good graces, she was able to finish the handkerchief. and by Misha's urging, she went to Phylan's quarters to give it to him. But Sisley had other plans. As Leela was about to hand Phylan the handkerchief she worked on, Sisley waved hers to Phylan, complaining as to why he left it behind. Sisley, despite being a mistress, someone who is supposed to stay in the shadows and not flaunt the infidelity she and Phylan committed, overstepped her boundaries and decided to embroider handkerchiefs for the couple in behalf of Leela. The woman's unsolicited action is an outright assault of her position as fiancé. Phylan, blatantly siding with the woman, was her last straw. Infuriated with his bias, she resignedly let him do what he wants. However, she warned him he can't tell them that she made the handkerchief. She doesn't plan to own up to something she didn't make. Walking away without looking back, she headed to the carriages on standby and boarded the first carriage she saw. The coachman told her it was the Duke's, but because she's seething with anger and she's feeling hurt, she told him that the Duke can board another carriage. She instructed the coachman to bring her somewhere quiet. In Sisley's room, the snake of a woman is currently working her way into ousting Leela. Using the incident that just transpired, she voiced out her fear for her baby. She fears Leela might mistreat their child once she's given the custody to take care of it. Phylan hugged the woman to console her. He foolishly promised the woman that if ever that happens, he'll kick Leela out of the duchy, not seeing the malicious smirk from her face. Leela found herself in a vast, well-kept field with a lone grand tree on its center. Alone, she wept. No one would see her there for sure. However, as if fate is playing tricks, the attractive man with blue hair and blue eyes was there right in front of her, offering her his handkerchief, looking immaculately handsome in expensive garb. She remembered him as the man who helped her recently in an extortion incident. Feeling embarrassed that he'd seen her in such a shameful situation, she tried to avert her face and rub her eyes with her own hands. The man gently held her wrist. He reached out and wiped her face using his handkerchief. Sitting down beside her, he asked her what's wrong. Etiquette drove Leela to answer it vaguely with another question. She asked the man if he'd solve it if she told him. To her surprise, the man said he would, if it is within his powers. She was glad with his answer. As they were talking, she noticed the handle of his sword. Just like Phylan's, it shows sign of being constantly used. Seems like the man's sword fighting skills isn't just for show. The man suddenly addressed her. When she turned to look at him, she was surprised when he pushed something in her mouth. Strawberry candy. The man told her that when he is feeling down, he takes strawberry candy. He hopes that it works for her too. Coincidentally, looks like it does. For some reason, tasting the strawberry in her mouth made her feel a bit lighter. The man's eyes unexpectedly fell on the box beside her and asked what does it contain. Leela followed where he is looking at and felt mortified that unknowingly, she brought the box containing the handkerchief she embroidered. Ashamed with the content of the box, she abruptly grabbed it, making its flap accidentally open, and the shameful handkerchief fell. The man picked it up and scrutinized it. When she said that she's going to throw it, the man asked her to give it to him. When she said that it was something useless, he held her hand and kissed the needle wounds for him. The handkerchief is precious because she worked on it. She blushed profusely, and an awkward yet cozy mood filled the air. Seeing as it is inappropriate, the man changed topic and asked Leela about a taxation problem he can't resolve. When she pointed out that it is best suited to ask an officer about it, the man kindly asked her to indulge him. The topic was quite absorbing, that it was quite way past afternoon when they stopped with their discussion. The man thanked her and found their conversation enjoyable. She felt the same. However, it is such a pity she doesn't know his name. She politely asked him. He gave her a playful smile, asking her if she really would like to know. Would she like to guess? After all, he guessed hers. Not wanting to lose to his challenge, she gave names from families she knew had sons near her age, but alas, none of them were correct. Feeling a tad defeated, she asked for a hint. The man then pointed to his hair. The color of his hair is hint enough, he said. Staring at his hair, Leela still found herself clueless. The man laughed and playfully commented that her information about the aristocrats is quite lacking. Seeing her pouting drove the man to console her by saying that she has until the banquet to guess who he is. Upon mention of the banquet, Leela's demeanor changed. The man asked if she doesn't like the banquet. She honestly told him yes. When he asked her why, she immediately got lost in thought.